Welcome back to the next installment of automating a DA6 in Excel. This is the sixth time that I have recorded this video, and I screwed it up that many times. So now I'm going to undo everything that I made, and we're going to walk through it again. The easiest way to fix this would be for me to just build everything again. Now in the last video we talked about using rotation 5 and 2 as the way to look up what number we should be on. And this works, but the problem is if you were to type a 6, it doesn't know what to do, so it would change it the next day. Instead of being off 1 like it should, it would change it to day 1 and then have 5 more days and cause you to work 11 days straight. And that is not what we want. Instead, we want a bigger table like this. Our lookup values are on the left still, but one of the major differences is our reasons for having our availability off on our availability tracker on our special days here. All of these numbers from this table, all of these letters from this table are already in this table. So we don't have to redo our formulas to account for that. So instead, we just put in what do we want the result to be. And on the top here, we have 3 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 2. So they have different ways of having days on and days off of work. So let's start the whole formula over from the beginning. So one thing we want to say is if this cell to the left is blank, if that cell equals blank, then just make it blank. But if it's not blank, we want to say if the availability tracker. So if index, like we talked about in the last video, the index of the array for the availability tracker, which goes all the way to ZZ200, we want to constrain this with an F4. And we want it fully constrained for when we copy it left and copy it down. I mean, copy it right and copy it down. So if that table has an intersection of the row that is going to be a match of the name, and remember that we don't want to have more than one cell in our lookup for our match, so we're going to say just the C6, and that'll count the whole thing because it is merged. And we will constrain that so we can keep the column C but make the row different. So it'll be constrained C6. Match that against the array of column B, constrain that fully, constrain B, comma, 0 because they're probably out of order. And since we already have stuff in there, we want to automatically exact match every time anyway. That gives us our row number of Ox King being on the second row. We want to bounce that against the date that we're looking at. Remove the DA6 part here. Constrain this to allow the column to change but not the row number. So it'll be K constrain 4. And anytime you read a $sign in Excel in a formula, you can say constrain. So it would be K constrain 4, meaning it constrains the row 4. But this should be a match. Match the K4 with the availability tracker, row 1. And we want to constrain that as well. Constrain 1 with a 0. And that is our lookup value. That'll give us our intersection. So if all of that equals blank, so it means if that there's nothing in the availability tracker and it's blank, what do we want to do? So if all of that is blank, the true is we want to get the day number. So we'll do another index. The index array is going to be the rotation. We already named it, so we can just type our named range of rotation. We did not name it, but we can just click and drag it around. I forgot I took the name off. So this, and we want to constrain that as well. With row number of, so going down, we're going to look at our cell to the left. We're going to look up this value, and we'll take out that part. We don't want to constrain that one. Look that up. Nope. Index. Oh, match. I'm sorry. We want to match that J6 with this column here. And we want that to always be the same. So we constrain L1 to constrain L, constrain 38. And that'll be a 0. We'll match that column to get the column that we want to match is going to be this here. And because it's a merged cell, we're going to take off the end. And because we're in a formula, we'll take off the beginning. We want to constrain this fully. And we'll look up this value in the column, or in the headers section of our table. And that should also be fully constrained with F4. That gives us our column number. And so that is our true test. That's all we want to know is if it's true, give us the answer to the intersection of the columns of what the next day should be. And so that finishes true. And then for false, we're going to just use this part at the beginning all the way until here. So this whole formula right here, we're just going to copy that. And we're going to paste it right here. And then we'll end our parenthesis because that ends our first logic statement. And then the furthest out argument is if it's blank, then blank. So we'll end that one as well. And that should be the formula we need. We'll click and drag this over. And it works. So what it does is it looks at the availability tracker to find is this date, or does it already have something in there? And if it does, then type it. If it does not, it'll give a blank. And if it does not, it looks in our back end to say after if the cell we're looking at is not here, where is it? SC. So if the day before was SC, but the cell I'm in is blank, what should it be? It should be a 1. That's why it comes up with 1. Then, so it gives a 1 here. But then it just looks in that table to begin with and says, okay, well, yesterday was 1, so today's a 2. And it goes on. If we take all of this except for that first column there, that first column has to stay a manual cell. Copy this and paste it down to the bottom, and everything looks exactly the same. Now this cell here, we want to make a drop down. But first, let's take our cell, our array that we just pasted in here. We're going to name this array in case we need to use it later. So I'm going to say Control F, highlight it, Control F3, and then we'll say new and call it rotation. So now if we wanted to in these cells, we can change this where it says back end, change all of this to rotation, and that'll still work. The other thing we want to do is name this first column here. So we're just going to call this rot for rotation. Oh, no, I don't want to name that. Hang on. Oh, I did the wrong thing. We're going to highlight these and call it rot select. Rot cell. And here we'll say Alt DL for our data validation. Use an select list from the dropdown, and then click and source. Press F3, and you'll see rot cell right there. Hit OK. Hit OK. Now we have our selection here. To test if this is fully automated, or in this case it's kind of semi-automated, but it's more automated than before, we can say 3 and 2. Now everything's on 3 and 2. And we can say 7 and 2. Everything's on 7 and 2. That's exactly what we want to see. This is a better way of doing what I was trying to explain in the last video. One of the other things we want to do is conditional formatting. And I'm going to show you one, and I'm going to do all the other ones manually. At the bottom, actually, we'll do conditional formatting another day. For now, because this is the 7th time I made this video, we'll move on. One thing we want to do here, because we keep going back to it, is actually name, or actually get this all the way to 0, 0. You'll want to copy this out so you got 365 days of the year. Let me do that real quick. All right, and you'll see here that it goes all the way to the end. I'm highlighting all of the columns. Oh, I did it for 2 years. Whoops. Oh well. And we'll want to change these back to 22 wide. And then we'll want our formulas to go from here all the way over. To the end. And we'll want to bring these down to 200. And that gives us our whole our whole calendar for the year for up to 200 people. We can go ahead and do our borders, make it look fancy, and we can take all of this. Well, yeah. All right, and then we'll make this also that wide. So now we have our whole calendar in case we want to add people on the left. This is going to be a hidden column, so I don't care that it says 0. And then we'll do our certificates later as well. So this whole table here is our whole calendar ready to be populated. And it has all of our cells in here in case we need them. And that's populated from our thing here. So I add John Johnson in the last video that I tried to remake. And if we wanted to say he was on leave, let's say he's on maternity leave for 1/23/2024 to 2/26/2024, and it is approved. Then on the availability tracker, you see here he's on maternity leave the whole month. And that's it. So in the next video, we'll talk about conditional formatting and some other things that we need to do with this tracker. For now, that's it. Goodbye.